Hey, it's Kaylee. You know me as the Parts Girl, and I work here at PartsEdge. Thanks for following this awesome journey as we highlight thought leaders and trailblazers, share best practices in fixed ops, and cover success stories of how dealers sell more parts and service. This is the PartsEdge podcast with Kaylee Felio. Welcome to the PartsEdge podcast. I'm very excited to be interviewing Sheila Pogue. Pogue, did I say it right? Oh my gosh, we
Sheila
talked
Pogue,
about
yeah.
Okay. I am so excited because these are the best conversations. You connected with me on LinkedIn, and now we're here recording a podcast, a conversation that really needs to happen. So, why don't you just give us a quick introduction and who you are? And yeah.
Yeah, let me go through my little spiel. In 2014, I actually
Wait, don't
started
go that
adding
far. I'm just kidding.
I write. Unfortunately, that's where it all began.
You can only do 60 seconds. Just go.
So when I was like 3, no, I started off my career, as it were, in bar and restaurants, actually. I was really good at multitasking, so I was a bartender for many years. And in 2014, I decided to branch out from, I had worked my way up to restaurant management and answered an ad for a parts clerk at an RV dealership.
And that's why we're here today, because
That's why
you
we're
were
here
in parts.
today.
That's amazing.
Um, I had a really unique it was a parts and service director that kinda took a shine to me and took a chance on me. As it comes with challenges when you enter a dealership and you don't have any previous experience, but, he trusted me with his till and, doing his cycle counts, so, after about 3 months, I was doing a really good job on that, and he started throwing some other stuff at me to see what would stick. He always said that he loved parts because parts don't yell at you,
Heard
which
of
was my
that so
favorite.
many times. I
Yeah,
love that.
it's so true, but
Get it.
he knew the service side as well and, ended up I don't mind getting yelled at, so I ended up taking a lot of the heat cases from service. I was doing some of the more needy customers, some of the more complicated warranty claims. I eventually took his role, they transferred him to another location, took over for him, made my way into the marine industry after that, worked my way through fixed ops, ended up as director of operations of a marina, and from there, I joined Automotive as a vendor on the outside capacity. I had a remote opportunity with, my current company, and I was really excited to check that out and try to help the dealers whose seat I had been in this whole time from a different perspective, like,
So
learning all of the things.
what year was that when you, because we covered a lot and you did great sticking within that 60, like, because there's so many things and I have questions, but, what was my question? When was that time when you went from dealer to vendor?
I went from the dealership to Dealer OMG, I think it was in 2021, and that's probably an important date to mention. I worked the entirety of the panini pandemic through 2020. I didn't miss a single day. If anyone was at the dealership level, they remember the good old days of when we were trying to figure out what was happening. They furloughed all of my employees, so I was a parts manager at the time and had people, throwing starters at my window because we wouldn't let them into the dealership to come talk to me. Like, it was a madhouse. And everyone I knew was getting the opportunity to work remotely in these other roles. And I was like, man, there seems like there might be something to that. So I'm going to give it a shot. And I'm really glad that I made the transition. It's changed a lot for me. I feel like I can help way more dealers on a much larger scale and a one-to-many kind of, methodology as opposed to just being in seat at the dealership, which has been really satisfying for me. I love helping dealers. It's what I get to do all day, every day, and, it's a little satisfaction for me because it's something that I would have loved to have. Resources like you and myself and consultants in the space when you're at the dealership is nice to have for sure.
Yeah, it's cool that you've been on both sides now, and I wanna kinda touch on, just because, especially because you've been on both sides, that the whole redheaded stepchild's, I guess, what is that called? Like, the title that fix ops gets in the dealerships, and, just kinda what you experience with that? How can we change that? I mean, having conversations like this can bring more awareness to the fact that it is treated like a redheaded stepchild and it probably shouldn't. And it's such a kind of a sad joke too. Like I'm a redhead, but I was not a stepchild, thankfully. But it's kind of
Parents
sad that
love me.
my parents love me. I mean, I don't know if they loved me growing up because I was kind of an asshole, but it's like,
That's their
I'm
kid,
getting
man.
payback. I'm getting payback now. I'm telling universe, thank you. Yes. Anyways, answer my
I have
question.
so that is a loaded subject for me. We're parts gals, so I gotta bring a parts analogy a little bit, but, bear with me. It'll be quick. Um,
Okay, do it.
in my opinion, the analogy is if you know anything about how an engine works, we'll call the dealership an engine, right? In my opinion, one of the reasons why this happens and fixed operations kind of falls to the wayside is when you think about what is helping with your engine to get you to progress forward, there's a bunch of things happening under the hood, right? Uh thing there I'm not gonna try to name them in order, but I think the difference between departments is like the differences in the different mechanics of an engine. And what I mean by that is sales is your power stroke. That is when you hit the gas, everyone sees go, you get this big, push from your cylinders, like everyone sees that. They feel it, it's exciting. We got a big sale, we got a lot of revenue, like that's what everyone wanted. When hear the engine purr, like yes. There's another critical component to getting that that motor to do that, and then it's your flywheel. Your flywheel is spinning consistently, storing energy under there, helping, feed other components when maybe the cylinders aren't firing, maybe when it's in between a fire. And it's critical. You're not going to go anywhere if you don't have a flywheel, if your flywheel is inoperable, or if it binds up. It is forgotten though. No one's thinking about that just spinning away under there. You're thinking about hearing the motor rev, seeing those RPMs, et cetera, et cetera. That's
Oh
the
my
end of my
gosh.
analogy. But basically, I think
That
that's what it is.
that is such a perfect analogy. And I think that gives it the perspective that, that reminder of what you need to think about is like fixed ops is that running where you don't really think about it. So, um, yeah, that's a good analogy.
Thanks.
Okay. So let's talk about what you guys are doing, what you're doing with Dealer OMG, and really just kind of I feel like the relationships that we have, we're kind of on the same like page where getting the buy-in of decision makers and really pulling to the forefront of what we're doing and how important it is, and helping those fixed ops directors or with your I don't know what titles are you guys really work with on a regular basis? I guess is the first question I have. But yeah, just how do we get
There's a
that
bunch of
buy-in?
different points of contact. So I'm currently with a marketing agency. At the end of the day, my role is consulting for dealers. I have a background that spans a lot more than ads. I can talk about, different types of procedures, every different department in a dealership. Done some stints with employment. Like I know quite a bit and I like to help, period. Whether or not you have a contract with me, if you're helping, if you're paying me for it, I just want you to do better. If you got a question, I'm gonna answer it if I can. I think people like you and I in the space, that's kind of critical to have vendor partners like that have experience, they're established. I know you've been with PartsEdge for many years. People that know
Happy.
what they're doing and know and understand how they are helping dealers is absolutely critical. You can't skip that part. Um, and having
What
said that,
are
that's exactly go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Well, I wanna know more of, like, what when you went from to Dealer OMG because you saw that opportunity, I kinda want you to describe to me, like, what it is that you saw in that there he goes saying words. I'm gonna come back to that question. Before we started recording, we started talking about how we say words weird because I was sharing that my dad was an Okie, and then I think your grandma was or is was. So we just say funny words, and I just said saw. My husband, my husband always makes fun of me because I'm like I saw it.
And it was bull
Like
and bowl and
yeah. I say
Yep.
bull and bull the same, it's the same thing, but I'm saying it different.
I'm unique
What do
because I
you
was
say?
raised by an Okie in Houston, Texas, so I've been told when I go west, they're like, "Where are you from, girl? Why did you just say y'all?" And I don't hear it. I don't hear my own accent, but apparently I have a pretty thick one, so
Yeah.
mm.
I know, it's so funny. Well, and I grew up in California, so I do kind of sound like a Cali person, but when I get around people with accents, I feel like my accent comes out because my dad just didn't say words right, so I just say them like him. But it's so funny. Anyways, okay. So, going back to my question, and I should have wrote it down because it was a really good question.
I think we were talking about, the transition for me
Yes,
between
I wanna know what you saw in Dealer OMG. Like, what opportunity did you see? Not for your role, but, like, what Dealer OMG is doing.
I don't know, they're probably gonna blush if they're listening to this, if they even remember it, but my first phone call, the point of contact was with our CFO. He's one of the founders, Keith Turner, and, he called me, and we started chatting. He started at Meta when he founded the company and, had been several years at that point, and he was calling me about the role. I think it was on LinkedIn, and I had submitted an application pretty early on. And, we actually talked about working in bar and restaurant initially. That was, like, what our first conversation was about, and he was excited because he knew that that meant, sense of urgency, client-facing, like customer support, being able to be adaptable, understanding when an item is unavailable, how to navigate that conversation with a bunch of drunk people, which sometimes you have to do in dealership work. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah. Like, when people are drunk, it's like dealing with toddlers and, like,
yeah.
it's
It taught me a lot of
unreasonable.
skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, and it was for an operations role, and he knew that I didn't have a lot of, experience working with the technical aspects of operations, but I did have experience at the dealer level. As you know, almost all of our beloved dealers have had to wear a ton of hats. Usually when you're in, unless you're at, like, a big box retailer, if you're at a single point store, you are doing your own marketing. You're hosting your hot dog grill outs to try to get foot traffic. You are trying to post organic posts on your own Facebook or get your sales guys to post, things like that. I had been doing that for a decade, I had a little TikTok that I would do with my texts and things, and he was interested in my background of that from that side, and we really saw the value of me being able to speak to what the dealership, challenges are because I had been in that seat. So, obviously, I was enticed by the remote opportunity. I love tech, and I was really excited to learn about marketing and just kind of the technology behind how these ads work and algorithms and things like that. I was kind of fascinated. So, I really quickly went from operation. I think it was like another 3-month turnaround. I started as a performance manager, and, my trainer, who was a dealer consultant at the time, needed to step away, and we ended up swapping, accounts. So, I took all of her client-facing accounts as an account manager. She went back to operations and became our senior, operations person. And I did that for 3 years. I built some great relationships with our clients. There's definitely some differences between luxury recreation dealerships and the automotive industry, so kinda cut my teeth on auto and learned about volume and, fill to par ordering, some of the stuff that we're gonna probably get into a little bit later. So, learned about automotive, made a ton of friends along the way, and just fell in love with the work of helping these clients, seeing them every day, learning about, last month was tight, we need used inventory, whatever I could help them with. I started to be incentivized more about that, more about actually helping our clients than really any other part of the job. So that was kind of the long and short of it, and I'm really, really happy here. I love what I do, and I love our clientele.
And I love that you guys really focus on doing one thing really, really well. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because when you showed me what you guys are doing, it's very fascinating and just it's I think there's something about that when you can do something really well and stay like focused on that. There's so much value in that rather than doing 20 different trying to fill in so many different areas, if that makes sense, like so, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you're niche down as well. I would say your service is very, very specific to who you can help. And we really want to be an inch wide and a mile deep in one thing so we can confidently claim that we are the best. And I think that we've gotten to that point for sure. There are a ton of players in the space, obviously. A lot of the people that are running the type of advertising that we do also offer other things. They also do, web services, SEO, OTT, all kind VLAs, whatever kind of, digital marketing they can kind of stretch their agency to provide. We don't ever want to be that large. We're a very small agency. And our intention is to be number one. That's the only thing that we do. We focus on it for that reason. We were actually invited by Meta to join their automotive marketing partnership. And there's only a handful. I want to say they're at like 8 now. And a lot of the other groups that they invited are huge companies that are spending massive amounts of ad spend on that platform. But they invited us specifically because of how unique our service is. They see what we're doing with their platform. They understand that it's all we do. And so they extended an invitation to us, and we were really excited to join that. Um,
That's huge. And what do you feel like are some of the common misconceptions when you're talking to dealers and you're talking about social media advertising?
I think probably 2 things. Number 1 is that it is optional. I don't think any any aggressive or competitive manager in that seat that wants to move the needle at their store and is interested in growth can ignore social media. There is projected, I think it's like $1.16 trillion of digital ad spend that's supposed to be on the market in 2025. And 60% of that is the social piece of Meta platforms. It is you're talking about the most competitive ad market in history, and if you're not on there, what are you even doing? It's just a total missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Um,
And don't just like check a box because I feel like sometimes the way that the ads are created are just they're just such a checkbox of generic, not creative, right?
and a lot of people, when they talk about social ads in an automotive perspective, they're usually thinking about automotive inventory ads. That's been the industry standard for years. You're familiar with it probably. It is an inventory feed with a picture of a car and a price on it. That's it. Doesn't say anything. There might be one line of copy. Check out our great inventory. Okay. It doesn't say anything about who you are. Our biggest focus is trying to hit and focus on the unique why buy message of the store. And we're focusing on that sign on the outside of your store as opposed to the emblem on the front of the car. Like Chevy, Toyota, they've already got their branding message locked down. They don't need any help from marketing. But Billy Joe of Billy Joe Autos probably wants to get that name out there. And that's kind of where we differentiate. We're not just showing them the car and a price. They probably already know they want a Toyota. They might even know they already want a Corolla. We're trying to tell them why should they go to Billy Joe's specifically, and that's something that's very different from the other options out there that's, like you said, just the check in a box.
Yeah, and then there's fixed ops playing into that too. And why do you think fixed ops doesn't really get a marketing d do they even have a marketing budget? Like, is that normal?
Usually not in my experience. Like I said, I was a service manager making my own TikToks and Facebook posts, like, "Come in and check out our hot dog cookout," or what have you. Um When you don't have something like that, it's really important for the general manager to prioritize it when they can, because that's part of the shopping life cycle. It's a kind of the same thing with parts, right? They say sales sells the first and service sells the rest. Service sells the rest because you are staying top of mind. They're going back to Billy Joe Autos because they want to get their oil changed there. You know, Kaylee called them and told them they have new special on this parts and accessory that they want to get installed or whatever. You want to keep top of mind keep them in that buying life cycle. And ideally, as most people in automotive know, you're shooting for 5 or 6 purchases over the lifetime of that customer, right? You want to keep talking to them about trade when it's been 2 years since they purchased a new vehicle from you. When their lease is about to expire, you want to get in front of them. When they just bought from you and you want to say thank you. You know, traditionally for years, salesmen have called up the people that they sold last quarter and said, "Hey, how's that working out for you? You know, did you get your oil changed yet? How many miles is on it? How's it riding?" Things like that. You know, I and not to besmirch salesmen, but I don't know that they're all doing that these days. And there is no this is the most inexpensive way possible to spread that message to as many people as possible on a digital platform. There's really no better way to stay in front of your people than social.
Absolutely. I mean, no one thinks that, then I just don't know how you're keeping up, with
A lot of people know it, some people don't they don't realize the value. You know, we talked about, parts just gets left in the dust sometimes, even when it comes to fixed operations. A lot of times the service manager doesn't understand because labor is gonna be the driving revenue factor of that department. Just it is. Labor is labor. You know, we've got our techs hopefully, you've got their flat rate at dialed in to where you are making a lot of money. You've got your warranty rate, your labor rate high enough to where you're cranking in a lot of revenue with that. Labor is where it's at. That's one of the reasons why service writers will discount parts right off the bat, which I know you can get some more visibility of that into with your service. But it's just when you see, you know, we had talked previously on some conversations about people flipping to wholesale for parts opportunities. There's so much focus there that could move the needle for dealerships that people don't realize it can be a revenue generating machine. It can help with service. As a parts manager, I was doing our parts and accessories turns and selling tons of labor for the service department because you need to install the part, right? I just sold this cool new insert part here, and it's a 16-hour labor, you know, to get that installed on whatever unit we're selling. That's something that service should pay attention to, and then, in my opinion, the general manager should be paying attention to as well, because it is the sales are soft right now. Everyone knows what's going on in 2025, and people that are pivoting with the market as they should be are leaning into fixed operations and used inventory
Yeah,
because you got to if you're gonna
have
stay
to.
alive.
Absolutely. Well, and I think so speaking on the wholesale, I think the hesitancy for it is, being in wholesale, you're either in or you're out, and I think when you're it causes a lot of obsolescence. It causes your inventory to bloat. So there's a lot of, like, um, investment, I guess, that goes into it, and if you're not looking at those health metrics and really tracking it closely, then you're really kind of wasting money because you just don't make very much on wholesale when you're
Mhm.
in that. It's just not. But if you do it right, it's very, very profitable as well, and I think what you're speaking to is running campaigns and then we didn't even talk about, like, I'm looking at our notes, did we even talk about accessories? Like, is that even on our conversation? Because
Actually, I don't think so.
I like, why are we talking about that? Because that's, like, a huge thing that, running ads and campaigns on accessories. It's like it's a mind-blowing the how much money can be made off of accessories and how dealerships are not tapping into that.
I think that you know, I spent a lot of years in parts, and I think that there's a learning curve when you're new to it. It's dealership life is a little bit hectic. I would say first and foremost, the first thing that you learn to prioritize is deliveries. When the sales guys are like, "I need a standing tall, we're missing a dash light, I need a windshield wipe," whatever, you know, they come freaking out. You learn to listen to the sales guys and be like, "Okay, he's delivering this afternoon. Let me prioritize that." I'd say number 2 is techs. Probably because the techs are trying to help the make ready so they can deliver the sold unit. And then number 3 is going to be your service customers. So people coming in to get repairs done, you know, you got special orders on work orders, warranty repairs, things that are going to help generate that revenue for your service department. That's going to be a really big piece. And then the icing on the cake in my opinion, is going to be when you learn how to sell your parts and accessories turns, when you learn how to do, maybe you want to go into wholesale, maybe you want to expand your market, and kind of see what all you can do if you've got these relationships established with vendors where you're able to get some cool things. Maybe you have a drop shipping opportunity that you want to share with your customers, and just kind of help pad your own department a little bit. I would say that there's so much nuance to the role that can be downstream and maybe for some more seasoned managers that are able to do that. Ideally, you would be able to do it day one, but you got to get all those other pieces prioritized first for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. You do have to prioritize and, like, kinda set the foundation, for that. I kinda wanna go back into I don't think we fully covered it, but, like, getting the buy-in and, like, how do we help? Because we really wanted to focus on that in this conversation. So, what were you thinking when we were, like when you came wanted to come on the podcast, and you're like, "Let's talk about these topics." Like
One of my ideas was, so as a parts manager, and we've talked about this briefly earlier, I had to be really creative about my own marketing and my goals for growing my department. I was very old school. This was years ago, but I was literally, when I was at the marina, taking my business card, going to the dock and putting it in cup holders of boats. Like that's how analog I was running things back then. And there's a huge world of opportunity on a digital, especially like e-com retailing and like just advertising brand perspective that I had no idea how to tap into. And even if I did have an idea, I would, as soon as I saw that there was a price tag associated with these things, I would have like turned away. Same with PartsEdge. Like seeing this service, I see the value immediately and I'd be like, well, I asked my GM if I could buy sandwiches for my 2 parts clerks, and they told me to take it out of my own wallet. So it sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes they just don't have the budget that they might give to sales or service. And in situations like that, knowing what I know and what I've learned back then, what I would say to people that are interested as a parts manager, that are interested in kind of beefing up their toolkit and their options is, and I will not be quoted saying this, so always get approval. Always get approval first. But I will say, I, in my experience, had access to a petty card, right? It goes to my department. That risk is my own. If I make an expense on it, I got to answer my controller at corporate and make sure that I have income to wipe that off the books, right? If you do your research and you find something that you know is going to have a return on your investment and you can eat that on your monthly expense with your P&L sheet, use that petty card and buy yourself PartsEdge, buy yourself some ads. Like you can invest in vendors. And this is just something that never would have occurred to me as a parts manager. I was using my card for other things. I was using it for the wholesale opportunities, for drop ship opportunities, investing in, there was some people, I probably shouldn't say this on a recording either, but some people that might not be approved, that I wanted to carry in my retail center. So I would go and put it on the card and take care of it that way. There's some vendors, sometimes you need to get a part from Amazon or something and you need it tomorrow. You need it to show up with that prime shipping. So that's another reason why you have the card available. It is, in my experience, if your GM has your back and they understand you're doing what's right for the customer and the betterment of the store, and you got numbers to back it up, they don't care what you're buying. They do not care. Don't even tell them about it because they don't want to know, but do tell them and get approval.
don't tell them, but do tell them. Oh my gosh, I love it. Um, okay, so we had like so many things we wanted to cover. Do you have any questions for me? Because I loved when so normally, so everyone listening, sometimes we do like a pre-conversation just to make sure that we're delivering such valuable information, and it's like we almost should record the pre-interviews too because they're even more raw. And, like, even I mean, I always try to be as raw as possible because I just love just having conversations, and then when we're having the conversations, I just think of questions to ask you, and it's not, like, pre. So, is there anything that you wanna cover that you feel like we didn't touch on? Because I know we probably should do, like, 5 other episodes on all the
I
things, but
I definitely think I'll probably need to come back for another visit. I
yes.
did have questions for you. You kind of touched on how we connected, and we had been connected for a while, and it didn't occur to me for some reason to like talk about, come on your podcast or talk about parts. Like you didn't even know I had parts background for a
No, I
while.
didn't.
Um, I do have some questions for you. One thing I've admittedly been out of parts for a couple of years. I've been on the vendor side. I will ask, since you have been with PartsEdge, what is the biggest change you have seen for parts managers and dealers? And like, what is the biggest challenge that they're facing right now that they might not have 5 years ago?
That's a good question. Do you wanna do the podcast for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I'll be your
uh,
co-host.
yeah, you're my co-host. Okay, so let's think about this. What is the biggest change? The biggest change is that I feel like dealers and GMs are actually looking at their parts and the health of their inventory. Like, I just feel like when I first started, they would push me off to their parts manager, and now they're part of the conversation. And I don't know if that's just because my lack of confidence and just starting out, but I really do feel like they're part of the conversation more, and they're actually focusing on it. Another change that I've seen is a lot of parts managers are retiring, and most people know that parts managers come with the building and have been there for like 30 plus years. And that has really shifted in the last 5 years. I feel like there's a
Mhm.
lot of new parts managers out there, and I think dealers and GMs, whoever's running the place, it's is really just instead of like, "Here you go, figure it out," are really, like, looking at resources to help them because that's historically how it's always been is like, "Okay, here you're a parts manager now because 'cause you're a really good counter person, and good luck figuring out how to
Yep.
do
Here's the
inventory
keys.
management."
Yep.
Yeah. So I really think that's the biggest change, and I think, the struggles are kind of always been the same, just, getting the parts and the obsolescence is, always an issue, just making sure that you're buying the right parts and turning the inventory is always, like that's the goal, and that's always the issue.
I think they're getting more attention. I agree. I'm seeing that on my end as well, and I think that they're getting more attention just because of what we were talking about, like, margins are tighter than ever. Competition is stiffer than ever. Little guys are getting swallowed up by big, multi-rooftop groups, and you have to have something in place. We can't just have grandma's autos open 'cause it's been there forever and it's a landmark and everyone goes there. Like you have to be competitive now. You can't just be an order taker. It's the same thing with sales. We saw the huge influx after COVID, and people that weren't pre-COVID salesmen were just like, "This is great. They show up and they buy a car and yay." And like it's not like that. It's going back to, the traditional form. You have to actually schmooze and know the product and be able to talk and
I don't wanna call it lazy, but it's almost like it's just like, "Oh,
complacent.
here you go." Yeah, complacent, that's the right way to say it, but it's crazy how much time has passed, we're so past, like, people just showing up and, like the way it was. That was, like, unheard of. We'll probably never really experience that again, I don't think, I hope not, at least, I don't know, it's just craziness of what we all experienced during that time. And the way how easy it was to sell cars because of the lack of isn't that the way that supply and demand really works though? When there's not a lot, it's just for some reason, everyone needs it. I mean, because I come from real estate background a little bit, and it's just that's how it all works.
I was in Marine during that time period, and we had a healthy business before that, but everyone was like, "Oh, I realized that being on the water in a boat is really important to me suddenly, like it's urgently important to me right now." And, you got to make hay when the sun shines. So it was a wild time for sure. And now it feels like, things are moving more towards volume and race to the bottom and competing, which
Yeah,
is
it's good, but I also, just thinking about, and not even just the industry, just life as it was. I feel like we are going so fast, and why how we slowed down during that time. Like, yes, we were busy, but like in our lives, we actually, like what you just had mentioned, I actually enjoy being on the water. I enjoy going camping. I enjoy taking vacation. Whereas before it was such a grind and we never spent time or slowed down. And it's like, I feel like we're going back to that where we're like not slowing down. We aren't taking the time. We're not connecting. We're trying to just breeze through. I don't know. That's just how I feel lately. It's kind of
It's
off subjects, but
honestly, I mean, that's one of the biggest advantages or the values that I see with PartsEdge is freeing up that extra time. When I was a parts manager, I had to devote a huge amount of time to pulling records for a bunch of different reasons. A, for my GM to, account for some of my expenses that I mentioned earlier, things like that. But also like to train my people. Like I needed them to have buy-in and understand why I'm asking them to do cycle counts every single day. Why it is important that we write off this, bag of nuts and bolts that's been sitting there since 2001. Like I needed to have data to present to get buy-in from them. Same thing with salespeople. Sometimes you got to explain this is why it's on back order, buddy. This is why we're not going to be able to get it in time. This is why we're going to have to go with this other thing that's not OEM, what have you, whatever the situation is. And having a service like that is giving me all of that in a snapshot, I immediately see the value because that's hours a week that you're not spending pulling all of that data
all
yourself.
the improv yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Thank you. I have a question. When you, because you were talking about just do it, but ask for permission, but don't. When you were going over those things with your GM, like how did you uncover that obstacle? Like, how did you overcome that? When they're like, "Hey, you didn't get this approved. Why is this here?"
I'm a high I am a very direct person. And there was lots of conversations leading up to that. So what leading up to that conversation probably looked like was for years me tugging on their sleeve being like, "Can I have some money for marketing? Can I have that? Can I have this? I want to stock these weird LED color changing light bulbs at my counter. Can I buy them? Can I do this?" And after, the 15th no, you go and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to get a little bit more creative about this and take things into my own hands. And I've always been of the mindset, and when you're in management, this is just kind of part and parcel for it. If you want something, like provide the solution. If you have a problem, tell them what the solution is. So I actually did all of my own research on what I was looking to invest in at any given time, and I would present that to them. I would go into his office and I would have my paperwork ready and I'd be like, "Here's this. Here's my goal. Here's how I'm going to sell these stupid rafts or whatever I'm trying to carry. This is how I'm going to move. This is what the margin is. I've got a 40-point markup on it. Like, you can't sneeze at that. Like, this is how it's going to
That's
pay for itself. And if
exciting.
it doesn't, take it out of my commission next month." I felt that you have to do your
Oh,
research to where you feel that good about what you're leaning into,
yeah.
that you can put your money where your mouth is and,
Mhm.
do your homework. That's what I mean by don't, like, ask permission, but don't ask permission. I mean, do your homework. Don't go in there just being like, "Hey, I'm buying these vendors. Good luck. Hope you like it." You know? Be smart about it. And and GMs are they're all looking at numbers all day long. They are all concerned about their store. They might not pay attention to parts, but at the end of the day, they care. If their VP or regional comes through and he's like, "Why do you have $450,000 of inventory that is, on a 90-day turn or whatever?" Somebody like, "What
Not
is
for
this?"
me, yeah. Yeah.
They will understand if you present like, "Hey, this is how I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna try to make sure that we are the, number one wholesaler in our DMA," or something like that. They see dollar signs about
Yeah,
everything, and they'll usually get some buy-in there.
I love that strategy. Do your homework, you're not just, like, buying vendors, but yeah, do your homework and then, take those risks too. It sounds like you were very impactful with when you were in that role of, trying new things and doing your research and making it happen. Like, that's really the people that need to be in those roles with your personality, so that's
A
amazing.
huge piece of that is vendors too. I definitely need to make mention of that. That manager I told you about that was the parts and service guy. One of the very first conversations we had when I was the parts counter person was be nice to your vendors. And I didn't really understand what that meant. We had a distributor that would come in, once a month to say hi, our little external sales guy. And when he first said that to me, I remembered it and I was like, okay, vendors are supposed to be helping me. Like they're not just trying to sell me something and I don't have to be mean to them. So we have an account and he's here to help, right? So he came up and when we started chatting, and one of the ideas that I had initially when I remembered that, he also told me put them to work. He said, They'll be your best friend, but make them earn it. Like they want to talk to you, they want to help you, but you got to make them do it." So one of the first conversations I had with this distributor was like, "I'm trying to get new here. Some of the techs are giving me a hard time because I've never been in parts before, I've never been in service before, and I'm trying to get some buy-in." And I was like, "They really like kolaches." We're in Houston, Texas at the time. I was like, I heard the vendors bring breakfast sometimes and you're empty-handed at my counter. Like, what's up with that?" And I'm joking with them a little bit. But anyways, fast forward, the next month he comes in and he has two huge things. I think it was like 4 dozen sausage and cheese kolaches from Shipley's for my techs. And I was queen of the dealership that day. They never ever forgot it. The technician buying, like, obviously, yeah, I got my little breakfast too. We got this good rapport with the vendor. The vendor got to write something off and show like, "Hey, I did some goodwill outreach to my customer." Everyone was a winner. The technicians adored it. And like, I never had them bark at me for a part ever again. So
That's so cool.
I think vendors that you can trust that are gonna work for you, you can call Kaylee up and be like, "Hey, I really need some help with I don't understand what this is doing." Someone that answers their phone and is willing to support you is absolutely critical in that role because 'cause you're
Oh,
wearing a
yeah.
thousand hats.
Absolutely. And moral of this story is, techs love food, just not pizza.
Yep, not pizza. Needs to be meat. Not donuts either for the
Yeah.
Shipleys. If you
Oh,
gotta
that's
go
good.
kolaches.
Yeah, yeah. Not donut like, not generic, just basic stuff, like some good stuff. I love that. Okay, so I love this conversation. I'm so glad you came on the podcast. Do you want to add anything as we wrap up?
I think one thing that we should talk about that we didn't is you and I had been talking about the NCM, Vendor 20 group. And I know that you're friends with my beloved Wendy, and we were talking about that. Shout out Wendy. We have so our CRO was actually the first executive chairman of that group when it went on its maiden voyage a couple years ago. David Kane from NCM Associates, formerly of Spader Group, made this group specifically of vendors that are established in the space of automotive, that are vetted, trusted, and partner with each other. So we're in a cohort of other vendors. I really really recommend anyone in auto check those out. Those businesses are tried and true. They are trusted. They are legitimate, and they're vetted by other vendors, which I think is a huge piece. One of the things I think I told you about on our last conversation was my first meeting that I attended of this group. We had a call with all of these agencies, and they were teaching us about the org chart at a dealership. They had like a presentation. They were showing us the different people that are decision makers, how the departments are broken down, who answers to whom. And I think that is such a value when you have people that might not have the background of a dealership that are trying to help you with marketing, or they're an expert web provider or what have you, to really understand what you are doing at the store day to day. That's a game changer. And the fact that they saw the need in that to help our dealers more, I appreciate so much. And I can't speak highly enough of that association.
I really love that. I didn't know that. I've heard so much great things and feedback from getting involved in that group, and I think it's just a great resource, because we all can't. I mean, I that was probably one of my regrets in my career. I know my career's not over, but like going to work for a dealership because I probably could have at some point. And
You
being
only can
involved in those.
today.
I know, but I don't want to. Thank you. I live with someone that is, so it's fine. But I just think that being involved in those groups and getting yourself exposed and just trying to just learn as much as you can so you can help the dealerships. I mean, that's the environment we're working in, and that's our goal is making everyone's lives better.
Yeah.
So
The name of the game.
I think you should have your own podcast. I think you think of some great questions, and I really appreciate it's fun. It's always fun when I get guests that ask me questions. Because it just then I'm not asking the questions the whole time. I get a break. And
Maybe
it's
I'll start
fun.
one. Maybe we should. I'll start one. You can be my first guest. We'll have to think of a
There you
name.
go. I encourage anyone that has the desire just to start podcasting. It's a great way to create content and your brand, and not even just for the company, but just you as a human. So yeah, if you ever want to start one, you should start one. So
And I'll text you. All right. What do I do? How do I start?
I'll help you. No problem. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. All right.